ask you about another futurist thing here, China. You guys are really diving into the China train in ways I haven't heard anybody else do it with Anthem Pictures, which is what, 3 months old now or something like that?
Yeah, it's about 3 months old.
Yeah. So you talk about it. Why did you create Anthem Pictures and why do you want to do this?
We grew up on foreign film, as we said. We went to the Cinematheque. It was something that inspired us. We love the Italian neorealists. Our first movie was based on the French New Wave. We missed the sort of, it's been a very hermetic period in filmmaking. It's been very U.S. dominant, which is not a bad thing, but I used this word earlier. It's very linear, and it lacks a diversity, and it lacks a cultural diversity. And when we went over there for Winter Soldier, we made some really good friends in the business. And what's exciting about China for us is that it's a burgeoning business. It's fresh. The stories that they tell are very different than the stories that we tell, which for us as creatives is exciting. It reminds us of the reason why we got into the business in the first place. And when you are working on large-scale movies, as much as we love them, we're doing 4 of them in a row, you want diversification in what you're doing. You want other things to inspire you. It just makes you a better storyteller. And I think we're cultural fetishists in a way. We travel a lot. It's something that we like to do. So it feeds us on a lot of different levels.
So what are you doing in China? These are not movies that we're going to see here necessarily. These are movies for the Chinese market that are Chinese movies.
Chinese language movies.
That you two American guys are going in to make.
I mean, it goes back to, look, when we, as we were saying earlier, our first movie, Pieces, went to the Slam Dance Film Festival. And the thing that's unique about the Slam Dance Film Festival is that it's run by filmmakers. So oftentimes after you have a movie play there, they'll ask you to stay involved with the festival. And Joe and I ended up staying really closely involved with that festival for a good 10 years. We were on the selection committee for much of that time. And we still periodically are involved in the festival. But, we went through a process with Slam Dance where, your job is to identify interesting filmmakers, interesting films, interesting voices, interesting expressions, and sort of like to help bring them to audiences. That's what the film festival does. And, that's what the business does in a lot of ways, too. So, I think, and that's how Soderbergh functioned for us, basically like sort of identifying us as something interesting to him at least, and thinking that we were viable within the business and helping us find a way in, It's a very specific role that we've been a part of on both sides, through the festival and through our work in the business. So I think for us, it's just an extension of that process where you're looking for interesting voices, things that excite you, things that surprise you. And if you can lend some help to that process, that's a great role to fulfill. And that's basically what our mission is in China. Is how can we take, they're going to make movies whether we're there or not, obviously. They have a very robust domestic business. But, in the same way that like Joe was describing, if you just stay stuck within Hollywood, it can get a little, limited. And I think they're feeling the same thing. They want to transcend their own borders, their own experiences, their own domestic sensibilities as well. So I think having somebody come in like us, we have different experiences. We have, the special effects work that we've been exposed to through our work here is radically different from what they typically can produce there in China. So there's different things that we can add to their process to help dimensionalize them in their filmmaking process.
Yeah. What's the capitalization on this company? I read somewhere $100 million that is coming in to help fund these movies, or
there's a co-finance fund that's $100 million. There's some overhead involved for a company, but and then there's the $100 million in what I would call jumpstart funds.
To finance the films themselves,
help jumpstart projects or co-finance them.
And do you know the filmmakers? You're picking and choosing the filmmakers based on stuff you've seen, like Soderbergh, as you say.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. And we spend a lot of time over there. We're going to the theaters a lot. We're watching movies, having dinner with a lot of people.
For the past 2 years, we've probably been to China once every other month. We go, so we go a lot,
We happen. It's really a kismet thing. We became very good friends with some folks in the business over there when we were doing Winter Soldier. We were there for a week and a half, and we met some people. We had some dinners, and there was something they asked us to do, and we said, yeah, this is really compelling and interesting. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that the market was developed outside of Hollywood. So it has its own perspective. It hasn't been co-opted yet, in the way that the U.S. market has kind of co-opted markets around the world. So for us, that's exciting because there's some really interesting stories coming out of there. There's some really unique movies. Their voice is very, very different than our voice, and I think that's a great thing.
And it's amazing. I mean, China is obviously the new frontier for movies, period. You know, American movies going over there, international. I mean, it's pulling the biggest grosses, and it's just phenomenal what's happening.
Well, look, the theatrical experience is extremely healthy and robust in China. It's, they've gone through this process where, their cities keep growing and growing. And they build, they don't have the same standard of living there yet as we do here. So they're like, their home entertainment environments are not as developed. So the movie theater is an extremely important experience to them still there, on a family level, to get out of your house on the weekend. And so it's a big centerpiece to all the, as those big cities keep expanding, all these new neighborhoods, when the big centerpieces to them are the movie theater complexes. So
the thing that sparked this for us, there's a gentleman named Song Ge that we work with, who asked us to do the company with him. And we had one of our first dinners with him. It was a meet and greet, and I remember him describing a story where he was, I said, how did you get interested in film? Because he runs a company called Beijing Culture over there, which did a movie called Monster Hunt, and he did The Monkey King, which are both very popular films last year in China. And he said, well, when I was young, I got on my bike and I rode 2 hours to the next village to watch a movie called Once Upon a Time in the West. And I went, that is...
Had you at hello.
I said that is why...
or whatever the Chinese word is.
Then, we started talking about movies, and there's a great appreciation there. And, it's an outlet, it's a creative outlet in a market where you can find more interesting stories, I think, than more diversity of storytelling than you can find here right now. And I think that we're going to see a lot of this coming up. We just happen to be in a position where we met somebody where it happened sooner for us, but you're going to see a lot going back and forth now. Because of what I was talking about earlier, is I think that the market moving forward in the U.S. is going to be driven by large-scale movies occupying calendar space, where it's going to be harder for smaller movies to breathe. So you're either going to be, I think, working in big branded IP in the theatrical space and quirkier character-driven content in television. And what are the other outlets moving forward? And I think VR is going to be a fascinating conversation when it finally reaches a saturation point on a consumer level, because that lends a whole nother opportunity for a different kind of storytelling.
It's fascinating to me, but I'm so encouraged for the Chinese people that they want the theatrical movie experience as we move closer to watching movies on our keychains. I think that's a real promising thing, and it makes my heart feel very warm.
And that's also true for many markets like Brazil, and a lot of the big markets around the world are still in that position where the theater has that position, which is great. Yeah,
that's cool, because we hear theaters. We always have heard this through all of time that theaters are going away. I hope they never do.